Hello there, I'm Angela, and I decided to mix it up. I'm coming at you from my desk instead of my rocking chair next to my bookcases, but now I have all my fantasy books near me, which is really perfect because today I want to talk about some fantasy books that I have recently read. Now, these are heavy hitters. These are big books that I had been looking forward to for a really long time. And I'm really glad that I finally read them at last. One of them being Legends and Lattes. As we know, I have said that I was supposed to read this and I bought it back when it was originally the publisher of Cryptid Press. This is my original book that I never got to for years. Only because I am so silly and I just knew I was going to really love it and everybody raved about it, and so I kind of just got in my head and now I have read it, thankfully. I really built this book up in my head because I said too that I wanted to read this in a cafe, and that was what I was going to do. I was going to get a baked good, get a drink from there, and that would count for my drink and snack from my TBR game. And the time came and I just didn't want to be around people. I just didn't want to be around people. So, as you will see, I ended up making my own wonderful iced espresso at home. And I also got my favorite crumble cookie. I think it's my favorite, the caramel apple one. And I had those as my drink and my snack with Legends and Lattes. As you can see, I had a little furry friend to be my cuddle buddy while I was reading this book. And all of that time waiting for nothing. Of course, it was a lovely, wonderful book. Of course, I had such a cozy, great time with it. Legends and Lattes is about an orc named Viv who decides to leave the orc lifestyle that she has created, where she is going on these missions, working with a crew, and instead wants to settle down and start the next phase of her life, which is her dream to open up a coffee shop. So she leaves her life and she goes, and the whole point of the story is creating a coffee shop, which could not be any cozier. I absolutely loved it. You had to figure out where you're going to get the wood from, who's going to build it. And then the other issue is that in the town that she settles in, people are not familiar with coffee. They have no idea what coffee is. And so when they talk about it being bean water, and that doesn't sound very appealing to them, there's the issue of trying to figure out how do you get people interested in coffee in the first place when they don't even know what that is. There are more items added to the menu. There's more staff that comes along, baked goods that get created, and that is far and away my favorite part of this book. I absolutely could have used the entire book just being that, just being setting up this cafe and coffee shop. That is all I really wanted. And so it's interesting to me because it says a novel of high fantasy and low stakes, and I've seen a lot of complaints about people saying that these are the lowest stakes, there's no plot. And I'm the opposite. My reaction was that I wanted even lower stakes because there was like 2 plot lines going throughout of these characters that pose a threat. It was basically people from the town who they collect money from the renters in the town, the businesses, to keep them safe, which is really just kind of a mob boss situation. And Viv, being her, doesn't want to do that. She's like, no, I'm that's ridiculous. I know your game. I'm not going to be manipulated and played by that. And so there's that lingering threat because everyone in the town is like, no, you really need to pay attention and do this because this could be dangerous for you. And then there's also a member from her past that poses another threat and a potential issue. And it to me, that was relatively high stakes because there was drama and there was intensity. And it would pull me away from the little coffee shop where they're trying to get a little music player to come in, and we've got Thimble, the character who is a mouse who is making all of these delicious cinnamon rolls, and that is where I wanted to stay. And then there's also this other character that is called Tandri, and she works for the cafe as well. And then there's like potentially a budding interest between the two women. And those are the things that I really wanted to stay in. I honestly, I know I'm very much probably in the minority, but I could have used way less stakes. I would have just been happy being in Legends and Lattes cafe and coffee shop and just figuring out the newest recipe, figuring out the newest drink, adding the new item to the menu. What happens if like the little townsfolk get on each other's nerves at the seating area, any of those little things. That's what I love. So honestly, this was such a lovely book. I'm very excited to read Bookshops and Bone Dust, and another book in this world just got announced as well. So I have even more in the future. So I had a great time with it. I really thought it was a lovely, cozy time. And I do agree that reading it with a coffee or an espresso or any type of cafe drink made it extra lovely. Now this, I have to say, since I put off Legends and Lattes for so long, I know that was kind of the first cozy fantasy. Maybe not the first, but it very much took off on BookTube as a catalyst for more cozy fantasy happening. But this was the one that I read first. No, not this one. This was one I read this month. But this is the first book in the series, Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. This was the one that I read first, and this series has my whole entire heart. This series brought me back to life a little bit. Honestly, Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne. This one, this was an audiobook that I started after I had not read for quite a while last year. I was going through the absolute hardest, most devastating, heartbreaking time in my life last year, and I couldn't focus on books. I couldn't focus on anything, hardly. I needed something to occupy my brain while I was doing cooking, cleaning, dishes, etc. And so I gave this one a shot, this audiobook, because it said low stakes. I wanted low stakes. It has tea in it. Tea is my favorite comfort drink, and a bookshop, as you can see in the background here. And so this audiobook genuinely is one of the most important, wonderful experiences I ever had. It was so well narrated. And the book in and of itself is just the loveliest wrapping a warm blanket hug around you ever. But it has humor in it because this character here, Kianth, is the master of puns. And I absolutely love that. And so I am now on the third book. So this was the second, A Pirate's Life for Tea. And then I just read this month, Tea You at the Altar, the third. And so I'm anxiously awaiting the last book in the series, Alchemy and a Cup of Tea, which is going to come out soon. But I'm going to talk to you real quick about the first one because I don't think I should jump into book 3 in case you haven't read book 1. So book 1, Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. Honestly, as I said, it's not a competition. They're both wonderful, but this one is my favorite of all of the cozy fantasy books I've ever read. This book starts with Raina right here. She is a Queen's Guard, Queen Tulane. And so you start in, a castle, and she is at a ball trying to watch out for any potential assassins. When an assassin gets too close to her and kind of almost takes her hostage, and Queen Tulane doesn't care, finally, Raina has had enough. Now, when you're a Queen's Guard, that is your identity, that is your life. You would hand your life over immediately for the queen. But Queen Tulane is murderous. She is not a good queen and has hurt so many people. Meanwhile, Kianth is the Mage of Ages. She is able to work with nature magic, and she has this power that is bigger than any of the other mages. And these two women have had kind of a flirtation off and on throughout, and then it became more than a flirtation. And they're truly in love with each other and really want to start a new life together because Keanth is kind of over all of the council, the people that has to tell her what to do, but she's the one that's in charge, so she tells them what to do, but then she has to answer to people, she has to go do things, and she's just kind of over it as well, and she really just wants to be with Reyna. They just want to be together. And so the book starts off with them going to a small town, escaping to Tawny, and setting up a life there, much like Legends and Lattes. Here's some wonderful art of the two of them. How fantastic. Tawny is a small town next to Dragon Country, so there are some elements of dragons in this series, and they end up setting up a bookshop and tea shop. Also tons of plants, because Keanth is very, very good at plants. So this one is a book and tea shop. Reyna is fantastic at tea, and Keanth is obsessed with books. So they create a checkout system so that the town can get the books and have a tea shop. I couldn't think of anything better, and it is called Tomes and Tea. Ooh, look. Yes, there are also griffins. There are so many things in this series that are wonderful elements of fantasy. Well, then let's check this one. There has to be art in this one as well, right? Yay, look. I really love getting to know the people in Tawny and the issues that they're facing and how Reyna and Keanth might be able to help with that. There's also the overlying needing to start their life over. So Reyna changes her name so that it's not noticeable as much that she ran away, because Queen Selene will want to get her back or punish her. You also have just so much hilarity. I was giggling this whole book, and as I said, I felt like listening to this audiobook brought a bit of me back to myself. It felt like it brought a little bit of life and a little bit of me back. Listening to the humor that I love, the tea, the books, the dragons, the Mage of Ages, the queendom, which is also wonderful to have kind of the medieval element to it. And I just, if you like Legends and Lattes, can't stop pushing Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. And then on top of that, the story goes on with A Pirate's Life for Tea as the sequel. This is a wonderful sea book, which is rare. I don't feel like there's enough pirate or seafaring books. And in this one, they're looking for some dragon eggs and get mixed up with some local piracy going on, but for good cause. And all the characters that you meet are so diverse. The representation throughout this is phenomenal. You see couples of all types. You see couples, some struggling, some doing a great job, some trying to find their footing and figure out how to be a couple. There's a character here who is supposed to be kind of a sheriff type figure, and she crochets little animals and little things like that. I love that element. You consistently face the concept of, should you follow the path that was set for you, that other people in power tell you should be doing, even though it doesn't benefit you and it hurts you? Or should you try to go and follow your dreams and also try to help others? So that occurs. And then the one that I just read was To You at the Altar. This is setting up for the wedding. And in this one, you also explore family struggles and what it's like to have a hard time growing up with the expectations your family has. It also discusses religion a little bit. And in this one, the couple believe in different religions. Keanth and Reyna, one believes in like the more traditional with the god and the churches, and then the Mage of Ages believes in magic and the nature power of religion, which is hard because one, the church one, is intangible and it just relies upon faith, whereas Keanth's, she does do magic. She does work with nature, so hers is more tangible. And just kind of light exploration of that, of what you believe in. So honestly, I just can't squeal enough about this book. This one really, book 3, like really wrapped in all of these wonderful characters that you've gotten to know along the way, and they even have like a game night as their bachelorette party, and it's so fun to see them like play this fictional kind of almost Monopoly style game. And the whole series has so many beautiful, wonderful, humorous moments that I just couldn't ask for more in a fantasy series. It has everything. And then at the end of these, there's little one-shots, and this one is just a cute one-shot. And then this one-shot at the end is a very spicy little story, and it was wonderful because everything's all cozy. But then she sprinkled in a mature warning of a little game that the two of them play of restraint and patience when it comes to romance. And that was awesome too, to have great extra stories at the ends of these books. And I highly recommend the audiobook. I keep listening to them on audio, and as you'll see, I colored while I was listening to my audiobook. That was my hobby from last month, one of the two. And I had a wonderful time as always, and I'm so sad that there's the last book coming out because it'll be over. It's a quartet, but it's great to keep rereading. Like, this is a series that I will listen to and reread so many times because it is just lovely. If Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree and Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne were my wonderful cozy fantasy, I had then read a wild, raunchy fantasy by Django Wexler. It is called How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying. And it was exactly what I wanted. I picked it up because I had read the first chapter. I think if you're interested, I believe, let me check on Goodreads. So normally, I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you go on Goodreads, there is typically, if you scroll down a little bit from the title of the book, there's a preview part where, yep, look, so right there. No, that's not my finger. You can hit preview, and it'll usually give you a little bit of the book, sometimes even whole chapters. So what I highly recommend, oh yeah, this goes all the way from the prologue and chapter 1. So check the Goodreads preview, read that, read the prologue and chapter 1. Make sure it's your cup of tea because it is absolutely a fun, wild, raunchy, vulgar, gory time. It's hilarious. So funny. This book is about a girl, Davi. She is from our world, and for some reason is drawn into this fantasy world that has wilders and a dark lord and a kingdom and so many different types of like species of characters. Think D&D, right? Dungeons and Dragons. And so she's a human. There are other humans, but there's also orcs. There is also fox characters, mouse, yeti thing. Like, there's so many characters, right? And for some reason, she is meant to save the kingdom, whatever that means. Problem with that is when she dies, which she dies a lot because this is a difficult thing to do, her entire setup just gets started over from the beginning. By the time we meet her and follow her story, this is first person, so she's telling us about what happened or is happening. She has been doing this for like 1,000 years. This is like life 250 something, okay? And it often ends with being tortured. It ends with just deciding to end her own life because she's not liking the way this one is playing out. Finally, she's there just being tortured again, trying to find a way to get out and restart. And she decides, this is enough. I'm tired of this crap. I'm going to become the Dark Lord and see if that changes anything. So you are following Davi in a very much video game Dungeons and Dragons style book. That is exactly what this is. It is a wild time. The humor is off the charts. This humor is just so much like my humor that I just was cackling and reading it out loud a lot to my husband, and it was just a blast. He's immediately reading it and he's flying through it and having a blast as well. And oh my gosh, what I love about this is it is a quest book, obviously, but it doesn't feel long and drawn out and boring, at least to me. And sometimes I struggle with quests because I'm just like, all right, let's get some action. Let's get some action. There is action this entire book. It is very graphic. It is very much go, go, go. And there are so many little twists, and each next step in the quest is so fascinating. It's so interesting. The scheming that goes on, the manipulation, the plotting, all of it is so interesting to me. I think that it was written so well, and I loved that it was written like we talk. Sometimes there'll be multiple letters going across, like no, or it'll be like sup, and like the way, or like for real, she'll just be like, for real, is this what's happening right now? You know, it's a stream of consciousness, and it's done so well because it is how we think most of the time. It is how we tend to talk. So you just move your way through it so easily with so many laughs. And there are footnotes that I recommend if you have a Kindle. That is a good way to go about it, is to read the ebook, because instead of flipping to the back, you just touch the number and it pops up underneath, so you don't have to keep going back and forth. So that ended up working out really, really well. There's a huge cast, but the writer did such a good job making the characters so unique. And I don't just mean in their species per se, but I also mean in their characters. There were so many different personalities throughout this book that it wasn't hard to keep track of everyone, and it wasn't hard to follow everyone, which, again, these are things that I typically struggle with. So it was wonderful to be able to have a book that I didn't really struggle with. Another part of the quest that I found very realistic that I loved is that there's constant mention, attention, and care given to needing sleep, food, and shelter. That is something that was really nice because it made it seem so realistic that, yeah, you're gonna need sleep. You're like, yes, you think, okay, cool, I need to get out of here or else I'm gonna be in trouble. But they're like, but we have to get food and we have to sleep. And how are we gonna barter? How are we gonna get food so that we can get to the next place? And shelter is a big issue as well. They're not just all sleeping outside, especially when they move through different climates. Another element that's huge in this is the rated R-ness. Not just the goriness and the violence, but also the other rated R-ness. I don't know how much I can say without getting anything flagged, so I'm just gonna say her escapades are constant and never ending. Any character of all that she comes across, she just thinks about that and tends to get it as well. So Davi is constantly making quips left and right. You can't get her to shut up about any little thing that comes to her head, which confuses everyone because it's usually Earth references. This book is filled with pop culture references. It is great for me. I love all these nerdy references all the time. Love, love, love. We need more books that have nerdy pop culture references. But then everyone in this world doesn't get them. So she's just always confusing everyone with her little quips. And she's always, always, always thinking with her downstairs all the time. And that is another hilarious element to see in this wild, fun fantasy ride. I love how the tension builds as anytime Davi makes it a little further in this life, the tension is really there because you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, if she dies now, all of this has to get redone. And how can that happen? Because not every single time the same thing happens. So it's very aware of itself that it can't just repeat the same plot. Like Django Wexler is going to have to come up with a new thing each life because people behave differently. People think differently. One little step could change how somebody reacts. So the tension is definitely there of, oh no, now she's getting further. I don't want her to die. Is he going to do that? What's going to happen with that? And the ending I thought was great. There is an iconic scene that I just had my jaw dropped for, and I think he handled it so well. It was so shocking and interesting. And even though it ends on a cliffhanger, it's more just setting up what's about to happen, but I feel like it does a good job completing this story too as well. And the sequel is out, so eventually I'm gonna read it, I'm sure. But I feel very satisfied with this fun wild ride that I just went on. It was great. I am so impressed with Django Wexler's writing, and the humor is just never ending. Like constant humor, constant enjoyable time. So if you're looking for that, try the preview, see if that's for you, and have a great time with it. I hope. It's really funny. Really funny. And I will say though, like, it's very clear it's written by a man, okay? Yes, it's a guy. Like, yes, he wrote this. It's very clearly that. And that's okay. Like, it's fun. It's hilarious. It's not super serious. It's just a great time. So, yes, it's written by a man, very obviously, but it's doesn't change anything about how great it is. So, it's fun. So this has been a great reading month with these fantasies. This one gave my coffee loving, cinnamon roll loving heart the fill that it wanted. Tea at the Altar gave a lot of the friendship elements that I wanted and the romance elements that I wanted to make my heart happy here. And then the other book, How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying, gave my nerdy heart all of the references that it wanted and the wild fun time that it wanted. What books would you recommend me, knowing that these are things that I love? Are there any that I have to read that you highly recommend? And also, if you've read these, please share your thoughts. I feel like I could just gush about these for so long, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I would just love to share the gushing with someone else. Okay, that's all. Thank you for joining me for this casual little chat about some wonderful fantasy books. If you're going to give them a try, please let me know. I would love to hear. And have a great day. Take care.